We've been studying a gentleman by the name of Simeon. Simeon was an elderly gentleman who had been waiting all of his life to see the Messiah. He had been praying and asking God to let him see the Messiah before he died. In the last couple of video lessons, we've looked at Luke chapter 2, verses 21 through 35. If you'd like to reread those, you can put this on pause and do that again. We talked about how that he was willing to change his life. We talked about how he was willing to submit himself to Christ. And we want to close our study of Simeon today by talking about not only how he would submit to the new, but how that now he would even succumb and submit to his own death. Some interesting observations that we can draw from the story of Simeon here, and I want us to focus on those for just a little bit. The Bible gives us an interesting picture of this gentleman as he's really moving toward the end of his life. And here is Simeon. He's prayed all of his life for one thing. He wanted to see the Messiah before he died. And he now was able to look down and see Mary holding baby Jesus in her hands. And when he saw the baby in the hands of Mary, he simply said, "Lord, I'm ready now. You can bring me home," because that's what he had lived for. And now he was ready to go. Don't misunderstand what we're reading here. He is not asking God to take his life. He's not asking God to kill him. He's simply just saying, "Okay, Lord, now I'm ready to go." The language that he uses in this passage of Scripture in Luke 2, 21 through 35 is the language of a guard who's been put out front to guard a building. And he has finished his task. He's done his job. His time of duty is up. And his replacement is there, and so now he's finished. And Simeon simply says, "Okay, I can depart in peace now, because these old eyes have seen the Messiah. I've done what I came to do. I've seen what I wanted to see." And he says, "Lord, my eyes have seen salvation." I don't know how old Simeon was at this point, but I see this weary old man with bloodshot eyes, bags under his eyes, for all of these years, waiting for one thing. And now he says, "Lord, that's all I needed to be satisfied. Now I'm ready to come home." In a sense, he was saying, "Lord, life can't offer me anything better than this. This is as good as it gets. I've got the best there is ever to have. I've seen the Messiah." Many of you grew up listening to hymns in a church. Many of you may not have the opportunity to listen to a lot of hymns anymore, but there's a lady named Fanny Crosby that probably wrote more famous hymns than anybody else, and she may be one of the most famous hymn writers to ever live. Her songs are sung in churches really around the world. Fanny Crosby was blind all of her life. She never saw a thing. She was blind from birth. Years later, after she had written so many of the beautiful hymns that she wrote, someone talked to her openly and honestly one day about her condition. And they said to her, "Miss Crosby, really, down deep inside, doesn't it bother you that you're blind? In all honesty, how do you get by never having seen a thing in your life?" It's a legitimate question. I was fascinated when I read her answer. Fanny Crosby said, "Don't you realize that the first face I will ever see in all of my life will be the face of Jesus?" She went on to say, "What else do I need?" I think that's sort of the way that this old man felt, Simeon, when he held Jesus in his arms. He said, "I've seen the best there is to see." See, when we look at Jesus, we don't have to be afraid. Simeon broke out in singing. As a matter of fact, Simeon will give us one of the first indications that there will be trouble in the physical life of Jesus while he lives on earth. He says, "This child will be the cause of the rise and the fall of many in Israel." In other words, he said a lot of people will be brought up because of him, and a lot of people will be brought down because of this baby. Jesus would, in essence, be the rock. Some would stand on this rock, Jesus, and find stability. Others would trip over this rock and lose their life. What Simeon was saying is that Jesus Christ is the Messiah, and he is inescapable. You can't go over him, you can't go under him, you can't go around him. You have to come face to face with Jesus. So many of us get caught up in religious trappings and sayings and church traditions when Simeon hit the nail on the head. What we do with the person, Jesus Christ, will determine whether we rise or we fail. Simeon said Jesus will reveal your heart and what it's like. He'll reveal who you are on the inside. Think about what I'm about to say carefully. We are not to measure our spirituality by some office that we hold or don't hold in a church. We're not to measure our spirituality by some performance we give or fail to give in a religious service. We're not to measure our spirituality by what we do in a church. If we want to test our heart and see how true our faith is, we need to look and see how closely tied to this person, Jesus Christ, we really are. Not the church, not even the Bible, not to a hymn book, not even to a religious tradition. Have we been tied to the person of Jesus Christ? He is the central person and the central issue of human history. What about tomorrow and the future? Have you made plans to spend the day today and tomorrow with Jesus? Have you made plans today to spend any time personally with Jesus? Have you set aside time tomorrow for just the two of you to talk? You know that he's written you a letter. Do you plan on reading it anytime today? Nothing reveals our heart and our life like Jesus Christ. For Simeon, the real test of all of human history was the day that he saw Jesus as a baby. You and I have the full story. We can see him as a baby, as a man, as a crucified man, as a resurrected man. But the truth is, all of our lives are judged not by anything else, but by what we do with the person of Jesus Christ. Christianity is not about rules, rituals. Christianity is about a relationship with the person Jesus. Simeon had seen that. And when he said, I've seen Jesus, that's good enough. I'm ready to go home. What about you? Do you know Jesus personally? Do you spend time with him personally? Is he the epitome of your life? Is he the top of your day? Is everything built around a relationship with him? For Simeon it was, and I hope it will be for you. Join us as we move to another section of Luke in our next study.